Hello everyone. Thank you very much everyone for joining us mindfully on this regular teaching on Tuesdays. In this particular term we are studying the important work of Asanga. The Asanga has attributed to have many works, and particularly 5 works of this particular text. Uttaratantra Shastra is a one uncommon factor of the 5 works. So we have been studying. So thank you very much, everybody. We're going to start the session with everybody renewing your refuge, renewing your commitment to practice bodhicitta. Since the whole practice was to how to attain enlightenment by nurturing our Buddha nature, by practicing bodhicitta, and therefore making the very effort of listening, and when to listen, which Zoom sort of link to tune to, and all of these are very important because they are. If there is no listeners, there is no teaching. They talk about how important the kettle should be, never mind the contents also, but what if there's no cup to pour the tea in? How important, how good is the tea or how good is the kettle? If there is no cup to pour it in. So thank you for your consistent attendance in these classes because let's do the prayer first before raving on. Oh, and the Buddha Dhamma Asanga Ajara Pera Ladama Bhavaju Ajivandala Ajara Vadavadu and the Buddha Dhamma Asanga Ajara Pera Ladama Bhavaju Ajivandala Ajara Vadavadu and the Buddha Dhamma Asanga Ajara Ladama Bhavaju Ajivandala Ajara Vadavadu. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know apart from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know apart from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and cause of suffering. May they never apart from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion, those never fall. Ego de angela possession of it, the Dharma, Agelo and particular text called Namshe Rigpa. Namshe Rigpa means how to teach. This is a text that has been not really promoted very much, but actually it teaches how to teach. Because Namshe means teaching, Rigpa means the theory of teaching, how to teach. And in this, it says to the teacher, think of the listener. And think of the time they give. Think of the commitment they give. Think of the purpose they are listening to. You know, they are not there to be entertained just for the night, just for the session. They are listening to the Dharma so that they can actually truly hear the true Dharma. You must remember, he says to the teacher, you must remember that unless you have cup, you can never pour a good tea or any drink, no matter how fantastic the teapot is, no matter how fantastic the tea is and whatever. Unless you have a cup, which is the nyempo. Nyempo means the listener. If the listener is not there and doesn't give their attention to you, what is your tea? Where are you going to pour? So there's no truly existing teaching unless they are devotees, unless they're believer in the teachings of the Buddha. So we should rejoice everyone's commitment and giving their company to each other, and make each of us remember, oh, I have this thing on, and therefore valuing each other's company and remembering the time. We tend to start a few minutes later, but you're already there, you know. You're always waiting at the door. It's very good, you know. So this is what makes the teacher teaching the Dharma should rejoice the student, should rejoice their commitment, should rejoice that their attention, that they're not listening not because it's you who are the teacher, but they're listening because of the Dharma. You know, it's very important. Hope you're not listening. It's because of me, because I got nothing to offer. Listening because you are listening to Asanga, and Asanga made us very sure that 8 sutras he named. He lists the sources of the sutras from where based on which he is writing this. So he wanted to make sure that he is not making it up and so raving on. You know, he made sure that his knowledges all come from the sutras. So when people listen to, they'll say, "Thus I've heard." You know, if they didn't listen, they can't say, "Thus I've heard." You know, people didn't listen to the Dharma. And then just because there's Dharma tea being taught, like the Muslims chant the prayers early in the 4 o'clock morning, most people say, "Oh, gosh, shut up." Let me sleep. But devotees, I think the Muslim devotees would feel, oh, that's good, Allah or whatever, whatever they will go. They'll appreciate the morning calls, you know. So like that. I mean, teaching in the 7:30 on Tuesday night to some people, it's an awkward time. It clashes with their other things, you know. But no way, you know exactly what you're listening to. That is authentic Dharma from the Buddha through the pen of Asanga and who even believes that he had a vision of Maitreya? So much the better. If you want to add that icing on the cake, then of course it's even better, you know. And so, therefore, the teacher must remember that listeners' commitment and their purpose, nyempo, nyenji, means what are they listening for? They're listening not to pass the time. They're listening so that they have a good comprehension of this famous text called Uttaratantra Shastra. And because of that, they wanted to comprehend the Dharma through the Shastra, because this is Shastra. Shastra is a teaching that actually teaches people how to change that mind, because they got taught how to change their mind, and therefore they got changed. And tenchu, meaning the Shastra means so that the Dharma healed you, Dharma cured you. Dharma cured you. When you listen to the Dharma, it helps you to cure many wrong views and thoughts, perceptions, habits, and opinions like no other, So, all our purpose is that, isn't it? Our purpose is to heal our deeply wounded mind and me and past and so on, and our perceptions that's often wrong. So, and with that delighted reason in mind, and then the teacher should, teacher should see that how he himself is learning more than he was teaching to others. Yeah, so that's really the case with me. I'm learning more than I'm trying to teach, because if you go to college or the Shedras, you're learning for the sake of learning, You memorize the verses, you do some debate, impress the crowd, and you think you're top of the class, and you could do that, That's not real learning. That's just academic work. So Vasubandhu says that let the listener get cured. Listener get cured by the purpose of listening. So they actually have a comprehension. They actually feel completely sainted by the medicine, like perfumed by the medicine of Dharma. Yeah, I mean that's what we're listening to. I'm sure there's some everlasting perfume happening. Not those 2-hour-lasting perfumes I'm talking about. We offer in the Gandhi, in the Buddhist practice, we say Argam Padim Pubid Gandhi. Real perfume is the faith. Faith in the Dharma, has to be acquired. It's not a prerequisite. Faith should be learned and earned and then grow. So much so it's not losable. Particularly when you meet some crisis in your life, that your faith in the Dharma that you did the listening to is actually perfuming you, so that you do not become affected by the bad odors of those around you. So to speak, I'm not saying they are, because when you are perfumed, you don't smell bad things at all. So that Dharma listening, perfumes our mind, I mean, this is what makes us friends. This is what makes us in the fellowship of listening and spending time together. There are lovely readings I'm doing. Gosh, I cannot get off myself from the books and texts, and I have opportunity to share a little bit of my readings with you, so that makes my learning or reading even more meaningful, because then like Shantideva says, I have really no intention to benefit others, but it definitely benefits me. It definitely benefits me. So with this in mind, now we're going to go over where we have left in the text. We are currently looking at the 7th Vajra point, The seventh Vajra point is enlightened activities. The effect of the consequences of the enlightened activities. We're listening to the Dharma because the consequences of enlightened activities hasn't stopped. Because the sermon was rejoiced by all those who were present, for the devas, to the yakshas and nagas, and they all disperse with happiness, and then it's over. It's not like that. The consequences has not stopped. The wheel has turned. So, in the seventh Vajra point, it is enlightened activities, which are mainly the spontaneous enlightened activities and uninterrupted enlightened activities. So to explain these two fold enlightened activity, that spontaneous means it spontaneously helps you when you switch your mind to the Buddha activity. When you know it's Buddha activity, you become spontaneously changed by it in a way that you thought never was possible. And it's an uninterrupted, that spontaneity that with which you can feel the enlightened activities, and it influence to you. It's influence to how you are changing, how you're negotiating your life and things, in a way that you thought never was possible. It's like spontaneous. There wasn't any alternative. You need to look, you have no question about choice of following the Dharma. Yeah, that's always remember refuge. Always remember the refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. And then elaboration of these two-fold enlightened activity that is spontaneous and uninterrupted has 9 analogies. Yeah, we finished the first one, which is the Buddha manifesting Rupakaya like Indra manifesting. So that's we finished that with the last week on verse number 309. We finish with that. Now today, with this session, we're going to talk about the drum sound of the Buddha's speech. The enlightened activities of Buddha's speech, Buddha's teaching, that is like the sound of the drum of the Dharma. Sound of the drum of the Dharma, yeah? Sound of the drum of Dharma. So that's why the speech is like the drum sound. The Buddha's speech is the drum sound when it is drummed. That's why in most Buddhist countries they have huge drums. You wouldn't believe in China and Korea and Japan, those northeastern Buddhist countries, they have huge drums. And they beat those drums on a particular time, sometimes to call for prayers. Others just have them beaten for the purpose of sounding the drum of the Dharma. Because people are so sleepy and they all fall asleep. They didn't have those alarm clocks those days. So here, to elaborate on that, what we're talking about is the speech of the Buddha, because it is so well taught, subhashit. The subhashit means elegant teachings. It is so well spoken. That's why it is thus I've heard. What I've heard is so well spoken that it woke you up in a level that you never thought was waking you up. So therefore, it is the sound of the drum. The sound of the drum is so loud and so clear that the Dharma sound is the enlightened activities of Buddha is the sound and everlasting truth of the Dharma that is sounded to your auditory consciousness. You never appreciated you have these 2 pairs of ears before until you heard the real Dharma. And therefore, it says the first one is the teaching is similar to the sound of the Dharma is the sound of the drum. Second is that nevertheless it is not comparable to the symbols of the musical symbols, like symbols or musical instruments. So the Dharma sound surpasses the ordinary music. Why? Third point is how it purifies the mind stream of the listener. When you listen to the music, musical instruments. During the musical instruments, your eardrums are beeping, and then you're tapping, and you're a little bit happy. But after that, that's nothing there. But so therefore, the drum of the Dharma is one which causes you to purify your mind. So what does it do? It teaches heedfulness. It teaches heedfulness. So that's captured in the verse number. It teaches heedfulness and it protects you from violence. It restrains your violent behavior, whether it's physical or verbal or mental. It helps you to exercise restraint and total practice of non-violence. So the first one is the teaching the heedfulness. So that's captured in verse number next 3 verses. Teaching heedfulness by teaching the Dharma. Yeah? By teaching the Dharma. Just as gods, through the power of their former good deeds, without conception, effort, location, and mental image, and this is a long sentence, repeatedly exhorts all the heedless gods in divine realms by sounding the Dharma drum of impermanence, suffering, no self, and peace. Similarly, without effort and so on, the all-pervasive Buddha teaches the noble doctrine to those of good fortune with a speech which permeates all beings without exception. So here, that's just the reading of it. So firstly, just as giving the example of the gods, among the gods, due to their power of their virtuous deeds of the past, power of their virtuous deeds, they have this huge divine drum. There is a huge divine drum in the what we call, this is not the Deva realms of the form and formless realm. This is Deva realms of the desire realm. Among the desire realm, they are sounding this drum from the very top of the palace, and when they beat the drum because when someone actually physically beat the drum, and then only a sound comes, like I'm speaking, I'm using my tongue and lips and my throat, all of this, by making this effort, then only I'm able to make the sound. Yeah. But this one, this one is that the without conception, effort, location, and mental image. So here, the divine drum we are referring to is that there's no conception saying, I'm going to beat the drum. There is no, the sentient beings are thinking things are permanent when they're impermanent. I got to beat the drum now because they are otherwise clinging to things as they're permanent. Without conception, without any of the conception, this sounding of the teachings of impermanence, that things are impermanent, and that all that are contaminated are suffering, and no phenomena have true self. Only peace is the nirvana, is the peace. So, no matter how many times this divine drum is struck to sound this 4 sound of the Dharma, and they deliberately have to beat the drum in order to exhort, meaning to awaken the gods, heedless gods, those gods who are indulging in temporal sensory pleasures, and the sound of the divine drum is actually sounding these 4 seals of the Dharma. So what are you looking at here? The divine drum is sounding the 4 seals of Dharma. That all phenomena are impermanent. Most people aren't thinking of impermanent. They wanted to keep things lasting longer. They want to buy long life milk. They don't want to buy short life milk. They wanted to extend things to last longer than they do. And they don't realize this kind of attachment to things is cause of suffering. And so therefore all afflictive emotions are suffering. And they don't know that. And they're grasping to me and my body and my feeling and so on. And yet when there is really no truly existing self. And hence they don't have peace, because so long as one is stuck in these three first wrong views, grasping impermanent things as permanent, and unsatisfactory things as seeking pleasure, and no self as self, when they do these three, then they have no peace. So just as in the desire God realm, these divine drums are struck, yeah? Similarly, without any effort from the Buddhas, because the divine drums are struck automatically, It is not that you have to create a roster who will beat the drum on mornings and afternoons and evening and then Tuesdays and then nobody, you can't find anybody to strike on Monday or whatever. Not like that. These are automatic. These divine drums are sounded automatically. In order to exhort, and in order to inform and announce the heedless gods to wake up from their indulgence. Similarly, without effort and so on, with Buddha's without any particular effort, the all-pervasive Buddha's speech that Buddha already wrote in Bodh Gaya, in Varanasi, in whole Indian subcontinent. And I was today reading that when Buddha was actually pretending that he's conquering the Maras in Bodh Gaya, they say Vajrayanis they say the Buddha actually went to in the Akanishta heaven. He actually taught many Vajrayana teachings there, but outwardly it looks like his body that is suffering with attacked by all the Maras is there, but in reality Buddha is already in the Akanishta realm and giving the various Vajrayana teachings. So it says, because Buddha can be many places simultaneously and teach differently to different capacities and so on. So effortlessly, all pervasive Buddha teach the noble doctrine to those of good fortune. Whoever is apt and whoever is ready, Buddha teaches the Dharma, and with the speech which permeates all beings with us. This very teaching that we are listening is none other than the automatic, all pervasive, the teachings of the Buddha that is permeating to not only our hearing and our visual organ, but also down to the marrows of the bones and your cells and tissues. They're all completely saturated. You should think like that. You should think that Buddhas are there right in front of you, and you are listening to the teaching. So it's not so much it's even when we listen to the teachings, we shouldn't listen to for the form of the teacher or the sound of the language, but rather the contents, rather the contents of the teaching. Then you will be able to listen like the deer listening to the sound of the lute. He stops all other preoccupation of his five sense doors. He completely become hooked by the sound of the lute music, sound of the lute. Likewise, we too will be profoundly affected. If you have been affected in the way that you passed through in the past were not possible, but you are in some ways. We all are hooked. We are all hooked by the Dharma. And why? Because these effortless enlightened activities, the spontaneous enlightened activities, and uninterrupted enlightened activities of Buddha's speech is permeating your morning, your afternoon, your time in the bed when you're sick, your time when you are going through whatever. The Dharma is completely permeating. It's just flooding your whole mind stream like no other. Because it is teaching you the heedfulness. It said, this whole 3 verse is about how the Buddha teaches you all the time. Nobody teaches. Goenka doesn't teach. Dalai Lama also doesn't teach, let alone people like me. It's only the Buddha that is teaching. It's only the Buddha who's unstoppable. Because spontaneous, remember? Buddha's teaching is spontaneously coming directly to the listener because the listener has such a devotion, such heedfulness to listen to it, and then it permeates them. So this is the activity. This is the consequences of Buddha's teaching. It's not just the devas and the yakshas and gandharvas rejoiced and they parted and they went home saying, oh, it was such a nice, lovely Dharma talk, gosh, and then disappear. It's not like that. You think that's the end of the teaching session? Thank goodness it's not. That's just being reporting what was perceived in the eyes of ordinary people. They were so happy and they're all glad and they all say sadhu, sadhu. You think that's the end of the teaching? No. The teaching of Dharma is humming ever since continuously, spontaneously and uninterruptedly, as so long as there is this good listener. Listener. There's a magazine in New Zealand called Listener, I remember. I don't know whether it's still going on or not. Yes. Yeah, we need good listeners. Then there is real Dharma. There is no Dharma, there's no truly existing Dharma unless there's these devotees. So why? Because the Buddha's Dharma itself is constant. There can't be time you're practicing Dharma because you sit on the cushion or you're ringing the bell or you're about to do the dedication. It's not that kind of a piecemeal Dharma practice. Those are just formality and convention. But true Dharma is always we are saturated. There is never a time that those sound of the four seals of Dharma there's never a time they are not relevant. There are never times they are not true. So how could you not remember them? No wonder it is constantly struck like a divine drum. So that's why it's very important. It says that permeate all beings without exception. Yeah, the Dharma is actually humming to all beings, but some are not conditioning by themselves, and therefore they're not conscious of the Dharma. Then they are not. So because their own condition is such that they think they don't even know about Dharma. If you look at the people who are really registered as a Buddhist, it's very small in the world population. Very small. If you look at the other religious denomination, the number is very, very small. But that's not the Dharma. Buddha's enlightened speech is always there. It's like the radio is always on. The transmission of the ABC is always on. It's just a question of whether we are tuning in to receive it or not. So like that. So it's Buddha is always on air. Buddha is always on air, and it is waking beings from their heedlessness, teaching them heedfulness. And then now to reveal the cause and function of that, just as the divine drums throb, sounds for devas, through their karma, so also, just like the sound of the drum makes the devas, to become woken up, and they are also tuning their mind to turn towards the speech of the Buddha and remember some aspiration they made, and then they are also more engaging towards the virtuous ways. Divine drums throbs for devas through their karma. So also the function, that's the cause. The cause is the Buddha sounding the drum, and the effect of that. So also the sages' Dharma speech. Buddha's lion roar when he wrote the sound of the lion of the Dharma, arises in the world due to karma. Due to karma means it's conditioned by your own positive stocks of merit and your own good state of mind, your discipline. If you did not put these kind of karma means causes. If you do not create these causes, you could be spending doing all kinds of things, and who want to listen to the Dharma, for instance. So we are also creating the cupness in us. We are creating the Buddha's speech is actually comes to our mind because due to karma. If you don't have positive karma, you don't have the discipline to time yourself, to make yourself available, have the keenness to use this as a formal teaching session and listening situation. If you do not create this due to karma, if you're time poor, if you're not saying, oh, I'm not well, or I'm not free, or I can't be bothered, or it's too long, if you start listing this kind of obstructive karma, you wouldn't listen. But you instead did the opposite of that. They say, oh, I need to listen to the Dharma. This is the time. If I don't make now, when can I do now? And so you deliberately create the due to karma, just as it sounds, just as, the sound of the drum, without effort. The source, the form, the mind, all these things are listed, all these things are listed here. So these mean the effort of the person beating the drum, and where the sound is coming from, and that the support of your hearing organ, and your mental intention to listen to the sound, and these are all conditioned. So only by having all of these put together, then it brings peace. It says without effort, the source, the form or mind brings peace. You find listening to the Dharma and how true they are, and then apply in your life, it pacifies your mind from resorting to the opposite. So also, without effort, the others is peace is procured by Dharma. So because of the Buddha's effort of Buddha's kind of the effort of the teaching the Dharma, some thousands of years ago, is the peace is procured by the Dharma. Peace is promoted by Dharma. Only by learning Dharma, people learn to make peace with themselves and with others. Until they learn Dharma, no matter what they do, they will not make peace. So peace is procured for us by Dharma, by realizational Dharma. We drop our ill will, or wrong views, enmity, and all these kind of negativities from us, and therefore it brings the peace. Now the second is, it protects us from violence. It protects us from violence. It says the sound of the drum is in the celestial citadel. This refers to the Kamadhatu. Kamadhatu is a desire realm, where the Indra and all the lives, is the cause which both bestows fearlessness. When you have Dharma, you don't fear. You don't fear any kind of like enemies, like demigods, who all of your fear will be allayed. To vanquish Asura's armies, when through defilement war occur. So this is talking about the Asuras, these are the demigods, and the gods appear to be always fighting. The gods themselves are never at war. It's the projection of the Asuras. It's the Asuras think that other gods are waging war on them. But gods never wage any war to anybody. It's just that they happen to have a nasty neighbor who wouldn't rejoice the gods, but instead projecting that they are taking some things from them. So the wars occur. So there is a lot of wars there in the god realms, and ends the divine playfulness. Yeah, and because there is that war between the gods and demigods, and therefore the temporal pleasure of the divine playfulness are interrupted, so to speak. Actually, the demigods themselves are perfectly fine. They're just as adequate as a god, but their jealousy ends their playfulness. They do not know how to enjoy this. They are engaging in jealous plots. You wouldn't believe how many people's jealousy just completely disorientate themselves and make themselves miserable because they are jealous. Like this, that arising from the likes of the formless meditation proclaims. Now, this is talking about those devas who have some kind of a contaminated meditative form, the formless meditation. In the words, the way of unsurpassable path of peace is to totally defeat sentient being defilements and suffering. Yeah. So, therefore, the teachings of the Enlightened One is to bring true peace, the unsurpassable peace. Not just contenting sentient beings with some ordinary kind of formless meditation and their absorptions. A lot of people get stuck in the absorption, jhanas, they call jhanas. They become stuck in the jhanas of meditation and thinking as if that is perfect. So indulging in the jhanas of the meditation is form of violence, really, form of self-violence. You are violating yourself from achieving the unsurpassable peace by your indulging into the contaminated bliss of the jhanas. So, therefore, here the protection from violence refers to your indulgence into the worldly jhanas, meditation of the formless realm and form realm, and so on, because there are these eight jhanas of the four in the form realm and four in formless realm. Those 8 meditative states. So this is referred to the likes of formless meditation proclaims, in the words, the way of unsurpassable path of peace to totally defeat sentient beings, defilements, and suffering. So here, the incessant, spontaneous, uninterrupted activities of Buddha's speech, protects the sentient beings from falling into that self-violence by getting attracted to the worldly meditation with the jhanas. That's exactly the Alara and the Rudra. I don't know, Alara is the name, and the other one name is Lakcho. The Buddha's two teachers themselves were stuck in those worldly meditative state, and they were later reborn as a cat. So it didn't take them very far. So in order to protect us from violence of getting attached to that realm. So that concludes the first, and now we are moving that the holy speech of the Buddha is far more superior than celestial symbols. The holy speech of the four, sounding the truth of the 4 seals of Dharma, 4 seals of Dharma, is far more superior than the ordinary celestial musics, celestial symbols. Why is the celestial symbol not a good analogy? Because it is said that the sound of the Dharma, it pacifies sorrow, and it is not just for temporary pleasure to delight for a few hours or a few days. So it's not like that. Whereas the sound of Dharma is to cure and uproot the very suffering caused by grasping to me and I. It's not just to remove the kind of noise or remove the heat or like that. It's not the temporary music that is designed for that. So therefore, this is totally totally far more superior, universal to all beings, yeah? The beneficial, blissful, and possesses the threefold miracles. The sage's speech is superior to celestial symbols. So this is talking about that the universal to all beings, meaning that the Buddha's sound of the Dharma is universal. The truth of the Dharma is never kind of restricted from anyone. The truth of Dharma is available to all sentient beings, and it is not only it is pervasive and universal to all beings right now. In the future, it will be beneficial. If they heard the Dharma now, even though they may not have a good comprehension straight away to see the benefit now, but 10 years later, something is ticking. Something has now, the sound of the listening to the Dharma they did some time ago are now starting to become beneficial, like no other time. So that's why in the future it will become beneficial. And in this very life, it will be blissful because it will bring the end to the sorrows and the causes of the sorrow that you've been resorting to. And so it brings the threefold miracles. What are the threefold miracles? Those three. The first three. First is a miracle is that it is beneficial. Dharma is so beneficial to you. I'm sure you will think that, you will believe that, isn't it? This miracle is a miracle that you never could call miracle at the time. You thought it was a really complicated Dharma talk. Yeah, I guess it went over the head, and sometimes it hurt your pride. At the time, you never thought it was going to be that beneficial, Then later on, a couple of months, you look at it and compare your notes, you realize it's so true that what you heard. And then the beneficial. Then the benefit that you never saw. People might say, oh, is it worth the effort going that far for that retreat or all that money? And people might say that. But later on, they realize, oh, it was so beneficial. So beneficial. So that's the miracle. That's the miracle. The first miracle, you will possess the miracle, the benefit of the Buddha activity, the listening that you did, the believing that you did, have this amazing miraculous benefit to you, and then it brings so much peace in your life, blissful. You're much more at peace with yourself. You're no longer at war with yourself. You're no longer at war with people. You don't see any benefit. You don't want to go there. So you're completely bliss. You have no sorrow. You're not whinging. You're not complaining as you used to. Because as a result of that, you're completely blissful. Yeah? And therefore it has given you the actual liberation, It has given you the liberation from listening to the sage's speech, which is far more superior than the celestial music or Beatles music. The Beatles music is quite okay, it delights many people. But when the Beatles gone, all the fans are crying, Nowadays they can play the CDs and so forth, but otherwise they still miss them. You never miss Dharma. Dharma is humming always. Dharma is humming always. The truth of Dharma is it is always true, always humming. It is much more resonant than before. It has so much truth, and therefore the Buddha activity is constantly there. It is never taking a back seat, so to speak. So now, so that's just why the Buddha speech is superior than celestial music, as briefly. Now we're going to elaborate that. Remember, this text does that. It talks a little bit and then elaborate it. Then it's going to elaborate that. Why it is a universal? Why it is universal? Why it is universal? Because we already explained what's universal. It's a far-reaching superiority. Yeah, far-reaching superiority in verse number 316 explains the first of the four reasons of superiority. First is far-reaching superiority. The great sound of the divine drum cannot reach ears of earthly beings. So that shows that the divine drums might be beaten up in celestial realms, maybe here between you and me, but it's not heard by everybody else. If I'm playing music, entertaining online, and you all maybe enjoy, but the rest of the people can't hear them. The rest of the people can't hear them because that's the not far-reaching. It's only have a very small range of effect. Only those who listen, those who are divine, those who live in the devas can hear that. We don't hear them. We don't hear those drums going on. We don't hear those drums that are struck continually. So therefore, they don't reach to our ears. Yet the sound of Buddha's speech is heard by subterranean beings. Even those beings living down under. Down under is pretty subterranean, I think. Down under is pretty subterranean, I think. It fits very well tonight. we are in down under, Down under. Australia is on the bottom of the, south is quite respectable place in southern hemisphere. But we actually right at the bottom, we are neighbors to the Nagas. We're surrounded by Nagas. Remember all the sea everywhere. Yeah, subterranean. Yeah, the sound of the Buddha is reaching so far, Yeah, we all are hearing the Dharma. We don't have to hear the sound of the divine drum because we are hearing far-reaching sound of the speech of the Buddha. Because Buddha's speech is spontaneous and it's constant, It's in the books. It's in your mind. Some of the teaching you hear really stays. It stays there. It never left you. It's not leaving you at all. It's just there always. So when you have that shows the enlightened activities of Buddha's speech has a far-reaching superiority that is not comparable to the celestial music. The celestial music only reaches to the ears of the devas. It doesn't even reach to the ears of the demigods, let alone here on the earth here. So people talk about how the drum should be very up high on a ridge or somewhere. Then they with the drum. Then people can hear it maybe couple of meters, maybe 10 or 15 miles away. They always try to make the drum as big and as prominent a place so that its sound reaches very far. But the sound of the Dharma is so resonant, so vibrant, and that it reaches even to the subterranean beings. When Buddha was in mother's womb, she could hear him teaching. And his audience was not just her. His audience was all those other beings. So Buddha was teaching all the time. It's not just in Sarnath and Vulture's Peak and all that. Buddha is constantly teaching all the time. So it's not kind of limited. The range is great. The range is far-reaching. So that's the first one. Second one is it's a superior into its benefit. The benevolent superiority is that the divine sound of the Dharma is that in order to resonate the fire of desire, the heavens, tens of millions of celestial symbols are sounded. Yeah, this is in order to raise the fire of desire of the heaven, desire realm heaven beings, because they have to constantly beat the drum. So many symbols have to be sounded to make sure the desire of the party goers are all kept up. Have you seen those parties when the music stops? People say, all of a sudden they think they could not enjoy anymore. And when the music comes, and then everybody gets started as if it's on again. Have you seen all those rock music? Some kind of electrical failure comes, they all no music, they get really upset. It's like that. The divan drum is like that. It can only reach. It has to be constantly beaten. A single melody of one whose embodiment is compassion has the effect to totally extinguish fire of suffering. Whereas the single verse, you remember, of the Buddha, the single verse, the melody of the Dharma is so true, And because the very intent and with which the Buddha made the sound of the Dharma was compassion, everyone who receives it will have their sufferings allayed and turned and transformed. Because it will extinguish the fire of sorrow, of poor me, of that and this so on. All the anguish, all the ill will, enmity will all be extinguished. So therefore, isn't the music of Dharma so superior than any music? This is not denigrating ordinary music, by the way. Of course, there may be times you might want to turn on the Beatles, Sometimes I just don't know what to do, When my kids comes to dinner, I say, do you want a Tibetan music? They say, Tibetan music? They have no idea what the Tibetan music is like, And I'm really, really uncultured. Uncultured how to entertain their hearing. But it's good to have some music going on when you're eating with your kids or your friends, isn't it? Yeah. So we try to do that, don't we? Oh, so hopeless. Only if people heard the Dharma's music, then they have really good reason to alleviate their sorrow, fire of poor me. How dare they? All of those things be completely, all the sorrow will be extinguished. So beneficial to be listening to the incessant enlightened activities of Buddha's spontaneous and uninterrupted truth of the Dharma. Yeah, so that is the second one. Is very why it's more superior. Why sound of the Dharma is more superior than celestial music, not to mention ordinary human music. And then the third one is blissful. Yeah. Blissful, superior, blissful, because bliss is completely inundated. People who practice Dharma definitely are entitled to have lots of their sicknesses cured, their sufferings are cured, their wrong views are all blissed by the Dharma. The beautiful and pleasant music of heavenly symbols only cause and increase their mental agitation. Yeah, ordinary music does that. So it's too loud. Come on, can you please turn it down? And other times you say, could you change that? I don't like that. They thought they were enjoying one a moment ago. It completely became agitation because all of a sudden they don't like it. They thought it was enjoying, but they become suffering of change, And ordinary music is cause of suffering of change, Ordinary music is suffering of change, but actually there is no bliss whatsoever. Whereas the speech of the Tathagatas, the speech of the Tathagata, whose nature is compassion, turns the mind towards samadhi and stimulates reflection. Yeah. So when you listen to the Dharma, it totally turns you to bliss, The bliss that you have never actually experienced before. Wait until you hear true Dharma. Wait until you truly comprehend the truth of the Dharma. The truth of the Dharma of the Buddha comes through the words and reason. But when you hear the words and poem or the analogies, all those are one thing. The main thing that is hidden is the compassion with which Buddha taught. You have no idea how much penetrative benefit it has in the long run to your little mind. So therefore, Don't look for the words, look for the meanings. Don't look for the meanings, look for the intent of the Buddha. The intent of Buddha is always compassion, and a compassionate Buddha's teaching will have much more far-reaching, blissful effect on you than anything. You weren't going to meditate, but now you are going to meditate. It says it turns the mind towards the samadhi. And those of you who you do your daily meditation, you should thank yourself, because that's the actual counsel the Buddha gave to you out of his compassion. One day of meditation better than 100 years of confusion. Yeah. And if you're doing your sadhana, if you're doing your recitation, if you're doing your chanting, if you're listening to the chanting by others, sometimes just put on those music, chanting of the Dharma. Really, it will completely put you in a meditative state, like no other things. And that's why it has amazing effect to you. It will turn your mind towards samadhi and stimulates reflection. Stimulate reflection means it will make yourself to realize something that you previously didn't think. All of a sudden, you thought about gratitude, you thought of forgiveness, you thought of apology, you thought of generosity, or you thought of letting go. And previously you're never going to stimulate those things. You're never going to make peace with that person. You're never going to do that. All of a sudden, it stimulates. It completely gives you an impulse that you didn't have before. Why? Because it is through the power of the incredible compassion of the Buddha, whose teaching is now stimulating the peace that you delayed, the reconnecting that you weren't going to do, reconciling you weren't going to do, all are now on the card. Why? Because you have heard the very blissful teachings of the Buddha. And so that's why it stimulates reflection. Now the fourth one is liberative superiority, meaning it liberates you. It liberates you. In brief, it is said, those in the entire universe of heaven and earth should properly rely upon that very melody, the cause of happiness, which manifests universally everywhere. So this is talking about the Dharma, the truth of Dharma. That's what the Dharma says, that good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Those who hears it, once, they never have enough of it, because it's insatiably so true. So therefore, the very melody of Dharma, by listening to it, it makes the people to develop some kind of a threefold. We were talking about the threefold miracles. Yeah. What is the first river? But you never had this much faith until you heard the truth of Dharma. So there's faith, that unlosable faith in the Dharma, and bliss and joy that you never thought you could get from anything. It will come from that miracle of stabilizing your faith, miracle of learning to have faith in the Dharma, not in things, on people, or institutions, or status, or color of a hat, or traditions, or in things like that. Please don't, because they are just a conduit. Look at what's inside the conduit. Your miracles of arousing truth, faith, and the Dharma. Therefore, no matter what Dharma groups are, you always rejoice them. You always think kind of them, show respect to them, and because they too are touched by the Dharma, and therefore don't discriminate us and them, and this lineage or higher school or all this sort of things. These are complete people who haven't really had faith in the Dharma. They go into people worshipping, and then on again, off again, miserable one, happy another day, is that kind of thing. No, when you truly have the faith in the Dharma, it is miraculous accomplishment to have an unlosable faith. That's the first miracle. And the second miracle is that yourself as a suitable vessel. You are very, very. You realize how much Dharma is needed in your life. You previously thought was just something you do occasionally, but not every day. But now you realize how apt the Dharma is, how the aptness and appropriateness and fittingness the Dharma is to just for you. Almost like if somebody deliberately sent it to you, you feel, oh, that's right, just what I need. So you feel that how appropriate, how miraculously appropriate you find the Dharma needing to your well-being. Yeah. And then the third miracle is the very teaching that you have heard, you are able to tailor into your appropriation. You are able to appropriate how you modify your life to the practice of liberating yourself. Yeah, because Dharma is creating this amazing music, the melody. It becomes cause of happiness. It manifests everywhere. It's appropriate to you. It is tailored for you. And you see this miraculous appropriation of the Dharma to your life, to your liking. So now the next point is how it purifies your mental continuum. Pure mental continuum, purification of your mental continuum. So that's really like the effect of the Dharma. The Dharma as enlightened activities. What does the activities of Buddha is? It purifies your mental continuum. If you're going to look in your mind, it makes your mind so hygienic. Because the Buddha, the teachings of Dharma, it says, just as those who are deaf cannot hear subtle sound, and divine beings cannot hear all sounds, so also the subtle mode of reality of Dharma, the domain of very finest wisdom, is heard by those few whose mind is undefiled. Yeah. Those people who have really purified the mental continuum, they will hear this Dharma. So, and as a result of that, you can see your mental continuum, such a shift. That's teachings of Buddha. It's not just not just people who can hear, hear, and those who cannot hear, not hear. Not like that. As that the teaching is only audible for the people who have hearing organ. It's not like Dharma is audible even without having ear. So it has that kind of subtle melody. And therefore, ordinary beings, many cannot hear because they're deaf. Divine beings cannot hear the sound at all because they're completely distracted, and they're not going there. And particularly, they would not fathom and comprehend the subtle meaning of emptiness. You see, mode of reality means the dharmata, the ultimate mode of reality, the emptiness of things. They cannot. It is beyond their mind, or beyond their mind. But those whose mind are not defiled, not tainted by lack of dharma, they will be able to hear even the finest meaning of emptiness and ultimate bodhicitta, as well as relative bodhicitta and their functions. So because of that, the Dharma, the enlightened activities of the Buddha's divine drum sound, and using the analogy of Buddha's speech to divine drum, it is far more superior than even the divine drum itself. Previously we were saying how the manifestation of Indra, and then everybody worship Indra, and then it says how the actual Buddha's Rupakaya is far more superior than even that of Indra. Like that, here in this tonight's teaching is all about talking about how superior the Buddha's speech is as a medium through which it propagates the Dharma. So we'll stop there, and I'm going to do the I'm going to do the reading of the little bit of the root text as a part of the oral transmission, which we started last week. So if I do a little bit each night, and then we'll be able to do a proper respect to the writings of Asanga. So you stay very present in hearing the humming sound of the truth of Dharma that we have been talking about. Oh, Namaya like a dan in the Jugum Dame again under Gunji Tamje Gudu Dagi Jundo, Pabe Jidan Navada, Gavedunga Zenem, Kodanimo Genje, Della Meje, Deneme, Yin and Domeje, Jazonam and the Ninjedani Javada, Jedangada, Navada, Jazenjime Junior, the Donna Marandona, Java Lazo Dadun, Donaka and Demedo, Pabe Jun, Tobaga, Jebe Jun, the Nijan and Rawai, Ninja. 탑다 인제죠 대nen지는 담제래 대장지된 말아 대마연 지된 던던지되나 지된점만 막어줘 저배마 주나도 제바 주여거와 대연되는 지되나 개연지된 메가와 자와주라 다도메 메진되는 바바제 여삼된 용적에 다도 용바주바 문제 뱀배 왕다네 문제 뱀배 왕다네 남도 담제 제베제 대nen르제 멤바에 던던바바제마 댐네 된다소고 된다소고 다다네 저당 저랑다 간지 지들 관계장 대대대라니도 대단함게 달래게 로라다도는 도메 런던데네 semjengon도 양단도 장주선배 전대네 제도부터 신식남 semjen양다 저발라 직된나네 냠바메 대다메 제사도당 자조발라미제 개브라강야 상제당 장주선배진여도 진주님에다메 전대제 저자 지메다메 모다메 대네 다도님메메도제 지메 저장마제라제 개와 메진 치와메 너메 가와메 바 대네 다던 denden지 시베 제단 용동제 대네 유지랑 신지 류지 제메다베제 사메예제 제보예 대네 지메제 덴베죠 바자점은 내남제 너메 시와니지 사명고바른 뒤제제 용동지난 가와메 대라 진이 대진이 니다 니니 고름지 르마제베 잉라네 다바라서 돈예자 메제 용된den제 신주민다베제 타이 무당정베제 갑기다니 되면 남버메도란 신제 님의 중에 제외도 마저연된지나메 지메도네 용종이다 간제되는 주거되는 대신제 되는 법에된 바도냐는데 대신이 니다세 연대 예매배 상진이라 마도냐는데 보면 도나사메 잉라네 돈예랍도 예와시 주지고라 소바에 남자 희네리 바제 상제주에 매바다 데레디진 도바다 점에로와 메제니 도네라 신신이도 남고 조정도 남고 조정마다 마바자제 방바 상진양인데 바네 담배던도 이메제 남바담제점에 삼메제메 연데메 예메제냐 다바다 달와간데 디진제 지다르몬제 바 현단실랑게 바 간제야라 간제바 대신에서 매브런제 되는데라 지금제 가에서는 지제 안가다자와 다달라 가에라는 짐바 텔레데네 도제데 레모레몰라 랍자와 텔랑음브르전남다 지지 유진랑제바 되네 유진 소면나 대마 장제르 모데 연라 탐제 용조바 민주 대신셰바 되나리제 간연다 진다 주르솔라 Zolazo, Nambakunji, Chondembe, Dombanino, Zujo, Shiravi, Namdona, Salata, Tajeda, Tademeje, Udaze, Nimekingo, Nenanzo, Tenasanje, Modoba, Yangendeba, Midobde, Udawaza Banene, Nimada, Minuje, the Dajevening Bone, Namshadam, Nambajuye, Nyomobuna Ganeba, Begagane, Jebaje, Sanje, Bengin, Damala, Bula, Nimbo, Mezananas, Salade, Newson, Jejonda, Guru, Nana, Jave, Godane, Pemengeme dona medada salarenje soyo jidawa lowrunyomo cheme jebai semjen namlati yin kamdene jida jema bema soja bumba mezan sanje goro da dongan barwe ngombaran dongwe peme sayen kamdan zo sanje jangje ningbo deda renje nadro renje ye lingda renje chode sudan jeme kejo chungbanyi jidaran dongen beme none ba chendong gene ba ne dibene jeme laye mingde midone chugende mebune jinje ba de yin na Menala, Sanji Jinji Jim Ranjo Jin the Timmy Chimemunda Duje, Daja Divla Lena Joban, the Chidamedu Bemas, Zumla, Deurashibane, Teakone, Lamingdon, and Damache, Chadan Zoji Jibon, Zozan, Ningbo, the Tuji Tuba, the Jebatin and Jamran, Chizara Soja Sogo, Danzin, Kiwan Kebetela, Tedonierway, and Tone Tabi Teda, Teda Soja So, Gunen Davara, the Jiba, Tanzo Chamber. 当初节目跟眼睛眼呢，人家长在当年长在呢，对这把长嘛当着哇，对呢，差不多不完在把伊，其他长在说家接话长的当着长在对你们长嘛太大啥的，其他人都把对象长在些，这把对象流进来有啥把没别，先把长没在当着娘们长嘛当着，等将把人开呗，接话结尾些，其他不能注意宁波呢，没那么严呢，其他人就把谁说当着你话。看见的，这大给呢不能得见的，得见什么来有你们也这么当着，你们这么当着家娃接受的你们这么这了嘛着吧，这些现在是从你们对面去，其他收入找我那住，宁波本来嘛就这么见，那边嘛就没那么近呢，这啥话新不民主的，得见什么来有去也往就你们不来嘛着吧，你们这两年不着了，去也个，各位老的你嘛也其他人都就。米也是，渐渐入边那时候弄话的，民间确诊的呢，在这里，罗家忙不到的那把的拉面那的，当的来也的，当年没来的呢，也别是人家长头讲的，人家也都不知道话也马话的，第一特别没长当的呗，你们最近什么用的呢？是呢，你们当的大家结果那么了，他们就去这边其他人渐渐入边那。认为3年来源同学呢，更多大把的家境桥段这边没来年纪短把的，提醒家娃你们没在那么龙就早上，人不去身边那么了些呢，太大家境旅行那么了，确断的其他没有金南少呢，没在白的呢，有就把没在德玛西的顶的样，太难的有些没嘛的，提醒一件呢人家一件呢去人家的这面下当上面去年刚马到去呢。我当年东安呢，那么军队结婚的人哦，其他欧北金南的呢，人家得去米，就为没啦呢，人家得到有些就不然米些，天呢米些的，提前觉得一金呢，什么间那么欧北到我的得到那么些，托不下去，今天都呢张双阳大的，其他阿妈老早新的啦，有别稍微有个经验就，嘛什么去做的没就能给，要我把人家就把的，什么间那么些马里。双这些巴布呢就香港的话呀，提前给我的拉的呢，提前给我的拉的呢，人家特别我就知道你们我当龙当啥都能给见那么几，达拉当呢，阿门这不是呢，新界大哇，新界去大哇，什么叫你们帮的呢？就做上早晚有个呀，提前给的当的了，传统白话就话也，其他人家来这结尾故事，结尾说口头真爱的呢。东就话，南呢来源当呢，这南呢，南呢团队在拉马瓦的，他们讲啊，南巴那做的，你们集团的些我帮你团长来呀，谁呢在那呢？他话这团这其他人家人些，电信些个整个沟通吧，南呢来源没跟他呢，他这没拉东巴的，电信你们个人移动，个人呢团长来呀，谁呢？他话这给我觉得吧，其他明末书眼个没啦，个没都呢到东就啦，叫我叫我半年前这边让到来也没大没些的，是不是叫我个没kim现的，马到身边安的不没行，但là感谢日本关节吧，这面看的对安的行，其他不没留了没涨，这面留了，这些个人没都送点吧，撒当安的那讲个面看把的东啊照样吧，提醒当然，那呢来有个没乱点吧。 ba rawa nyamo wange yima shibe donga shila ne chidar nang ke sejun sugye ba shiva chiro sai ranshin jen tone de ye ba da nang ge je bangje chiro de ba se je da ranshin o sa je men nam jan ne lo ba ne zibra yune renjen jun ne da won rawa na de ba da la jong je jang jo jo chidar je me se ba le je sai nang zu chu ju zo shi de ran zen ke be ri ne sa da se ba je ba da ti jin kun jen da be sen da shi be yin ne jen jo ba che je cu ji de je zhe be zhe ba da ne se wan ze be ma so ja bong wa da bong ba da ne me zang sa de shin go ru pe me ye nga da sai bum na ya sang je zhang ze ning bo yin se yin de yin zhang ba yin ren jen go dang ko lo ye ju wa yin da se go jo sen je nam je nyom mo bo sam ne man de to ma me ba ne sem ji ran ye de me de to ma me ba yin ba jo cha dang dang da mo da de ne go da ba ja go da cha dang ba ja dang tong go lam ba ma ma da ma da de sa la den ba ye jiman nam go be ma ye bu so be ne rab den de and so then rab den de nye we nyom mo bi ne ye wa che wa ta yen de so ja jima go bon de do du ne ko rim she be me bu la so ba ye be go da ge yang da de jin de da ge jinam da jon lo ba lo de na rim she ye da je ba de ni ye ne mo je ji de be man dam ye de dun de ju na ye ga jin ga wa men je ba do ja ga wa de yen no so ja da ma ne shin de zhu den dong de da de yin xie dan ge wa na ni la dong a ge ba je ji de so ning bo ne chi ro ben be de ba de yin ning bo dong dong wa ma ri gong e bu ge de ji de me zang min dun ba de yin cha dan jian nan ge de ba den be yun je gun den da me zang da ji de no ne de be je me yi de me da ba da de yin ge la ran jong ye ma ri ba ja ge de be ji de nyu zo rim ge we sawan shin ba je ba da de yin dong wa ye dong ba nam ne do ba ren ju pa be lam dan de wa la ji zo ning bo jam ye je gom la yi xie bang ja na gu ru da dang zong ba ne sa dun ba la sa dun la de zhe ma ne nga bu zhe ma da dang zong nga bu dang zha me do be yi xie nam ba do ba xin sa sum jian de zhe ma nam sa zun jian de zhe ma na san dam gui xin xie ba ra de da ni zhen bo de we ding yin zin ji xiong jia yin. So we'll stop there. Okay, now we have a little bit of time for question. Please, if you have some questions, feel free to ask for the benefit of others. Well, if you have, you know what to do if you have questions. Either you can type in the chat box or you can unmute yourself. Yeah, so tonight's teaching was all about how the speech of Buddha's teaching is constant, spontaneous, uninterrupted, the most beautiful music that never dulls your mind, that is ever sounding truth, that never will go off, that never will expire of use and validity. And so we need to rejoice that, and just being mindful of that just being mindful that we are listeners of the Dharma. Not only when we're listening to talks, but we're always listening to the truth. The truth of those four seals of Dharma is always true. When we don't remember this, when we're not listening to the Dharma, then we react, then we complain, then we become dissatisfied, then we think it's a fault of others, then we just make others miserable, and that's when we are not mindful of the enlightened activities of Buddha, the ever truthful sound of the four seals of Dharma. So that's why the analogy was given that the Buddha's teaching is no comparison to any ordinary music or any ordinary listening that you may do. So the more we are able to remember this, the more you will rejoice your connection with the Dharma and your activities of the Dharma, and other people's activity of Dharma, you will rejoice, and so on. So that's really gist of what we discussed tonight. Yes?
I have a question from somebody on YouTube.
Yes? We have a question from YouTube.
The question is, what happens to the consciousness after death and before rebirth? My beloved dad, a devoted practicing Buddhist, passed away exactly 3 months ago yesterday.
Yes, thank you. Yes, condolence to your father's passing away. It's very kind of you to be thinking of what goes on, what's happening to the consciousness after death and before rebirth. So the time that between death and before rebirth, we call in Tibetan Buddhism Bardo. Bardo is intermediate state. The duration of the intermediate could be as short as few days, as long as maximum 49 days. During that time, our friend or father who passed away, he doesn't know he has passed away a lot of the time. He does suspect that something may have happened, but he actually doesn't believe that he's died. He keeps coming, looking at how his loved ones are doing, and he actually sits on the chair. He will come to your home, he visits someone, whatever he thinks, his mind is, his consciousness is very, very fast as the mind. When the mind thinks of New York, it reaches there. Mind thinks of somewhere, it goes there. So the consciousness of the deceased is very, very fast moving. And he has many reasons to fear of something. It has happened, but he still suspects that he's still the father. So most people who die, they are not conscious they have died, because they never considered dying, and they're not familiar with the death. They actually would have despised or denied or tried to avoid dying, and because of that, it comes too much too soon for most people to realize that their conventional body and themselves have died. They don't know. They don't, even if their body is cremated, they don't see it. They still are busy being the father or the loved one, and so therefore the consciousness of the deceased is very lost, very confused. So we as the surviving relatives need to still love the father as our father, and nevertheless do various spiritual practice, prayers, and telling him that the life was an illusion, and now it has come to confirm that, and therefore almost bid him farewell. And so whatever we can do out of true spiritual prayers and aspiration, and fulfill whatever legacy of the deceased is, then the deceased become very, they will come to know, oh, I must have been dead. Oh, they're doing this, they're so nice. They're telling me I'm dead, maybe I am. Then he touches his body, because the body is not there. He looks for shadow, he couldn't see the shadow. And then he comes to know that his death has happened, and then starting to make new arrangements, because he realized that he's not living. So most of the deceased people after death are still reliving their life as a father, as a brother, as an uncle, as a boss, whatever it is, he's still busy being there. So whoever is strongly have strong karmic connection from his heart, he's always coming to visit them. So no matter, so whatever great prayers and mantras, Om Mani Padme Hum, prayer to Amitabha or Medicine Buddha mantra, or whatever prayers that you can put your hands on, if you do it in his memory, slowly this will inform him that death has occurred, and then he will start to realize all things are illusion, and then that will quicken his pace of finding freedom from rebirth, if possible. If he has to find a rebirth, whatever good merit you do for on his behalf and for him, to fulfill his will, whatever his will are, try to do better than what he has said for spiritual purpose. The more what we can do lovingly, the more our karmic indebtedness to our loved ones be repaid by doing that. So that will quicken the pace of him actually wandering into the very uncertain Pardo realm. Pardo realm is very, very treacherous. They have nobody they know. We may have lost our dad, but he has lost all of us. He has lost everyone, because everybody treat him as he's dead, and he knows that something awful has happened. So he's very, very, the deceased people are huge suffering. We love them as much as they were living, and yet there's very little we can do. So we shouldn't mourn and groan as much as people do, but still try to see his goodness, see his kindness, and make a vow to do few good things in his memory within this first year, in order to make it easier for his journey to find a better rebirth. So that's why in Buddhist belief we do this amazing practices and prayers for the 49 days, as then the families usually do many good things throughout the first year and go on pilgrimage or something in memory of the deceased, do various things so that he or she is able to find a new rebirth, because everybody will have some kind of rebirth unless they're completely enlightened enough not to have another rebirth in samsara. So the consciousness of the deceased become very, very unconscious for a long time, and slowly they will have to learn to let go of their misconception. So they become kind of a spirit. They become spirit because they don't have the body. Remember, and they are classed as a Gandharvas. Gandharva is a smell eater spirit. So any prayers we do while the deceased has gone, such as there are special smoke offering pujas we do every week, if possible every day, and then it's never too late to be doing those, because this will set the consciousness of the deceased free from the difficult Pada realms, and will greatly assist them to gain rebirth. So whatever good meritorious things you can do in his memory, lovingly, out of true gratitude, because our love for the dead has not died with his death. Our love for the dead has actually increased, and then we realize we should have done many more things while he was alive, but it's never too late to do good in his memory. So we should know that that is the plight of the deceased, and do as much virtue as possible within the first year that will have a quicker karmic kind of a condition, because we as surviving children or family members have a strong karmic bond with the deceased, and the more good we do in his memory spiritually, the more it will quicken his pace to be free from the bardo and find a happy rebirth. So therefore let me say a short prayer for your deceased father and all those people who have died in recent days in the flood and terrible earthquake in Sichuan province. There's quite a lot of Tibetans that killed too. Chadon Kolon Jirve Javodon, Jendon Gawa Zambo Zanjidon, Ganla Gandu Dela Deda, Zumba Jene Zela, Janzalo, Mane Beme, Omane 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 Beme. Omane Beme, Omiyanga Zadonga Menje, Gawa Jeba Mebaya Lave, Labella, Teda Zanje, Nyoda, Jogewandi, and Yoda, the Genes, the Wonder, and Roaji Yamal, Te Zalanga, Bemandam Yamago, Susan Dremamo, Sibe Bemal, Dewa Jendo, Yawara, Shaw, Janjo, Samjo Ramboje, Majeban, and Jewan, Yambame, Gone, Gonda, Bewara, Jo. Thank you for your question, because it helped me to remind myself of all those people who have died in terrible natural disasters, and not to mention the wars and whatnot. So we should always think of the deceased people. Dying people are many, living people are few. Many people don't do any prayers for the deceased. They do the funeral thing, just a social thing, but after that they don't do anything. And that's the way, because they don't know the Dharma. They don't know their father is still their father, The father hasn't forgotten us, so why should we forget because he lost his body? He lost many things. He has lost us as well. So more we can do thinking kindly of him as a lost person and then doing something for them spiritually. They are spiritually sensitive now to receive good prayers and good heartfelt messages that you actually say that you love him, that thank him. You might apologize for your mistakes, your misgivings. You rejoice his goodness and thank them, and you confess on his behalf if some things that others are not quite settled well with him. You also can do that. So usually in Buddhism we do a called Sutra of Three Heaps. Sutra of Three Heaps, heaps of homage to the Buddhas, 35 Buddhas, heaps of confession on behalf of the deceased and for the deceased, together with the deceased, and then heaps of dedication, all the good that he's done, and rejoice them. And so these things can be done. So if you're interested to learn this sort of things, we can send you the Sutra of Three Heaps. Thank you, everyone. So with this, we're now going to do the dedication merits. Thank you for the question, and everyone. We are able to stay very very tuned up with the Dharma's music that we have all in our lives, and may we never forget that, because enlightened activities of Buddha is constant and spontaneous and uninterrupted, and we just have to know the Buddha Dharma is online. So we need to rejoice that ever-sounding Dharma in our mind, remain very mindful. So for that we're going to do the dedication merits. I'm going to do the dedication merits in Tibetan. You can do that in English. Thank you, everyone. O zonan de damje zebanye damne nyebe dana bamje yega naje balan rubaye zebe zol do and varajo teja damje renje jendel dage zonaman daye gando ba dene drogen teja dambe renje jema mebe ne jroje jamba Baba Jidran Jambada Kunda Zamba Deyan Dejanda Deda Gunje Jezo Dalavaja Gyawan Deda Damje Ravdungo Chanju Zemjo Rinpoche Maje Bana Jejroje Jeba Nyamba Mebaye Gone Gonda Bewarajo. Thank you, everyone.